Today we are going to talk about citing textual evidence. So I've noticed that this is something that students have really been struggling with. Finding a direct quote from the text instead of summarizing, and also finding a quote that is the strongest, best piece of evidence that you can choose. So we're going to review some key terms first. Go ahead and take notes on your paper. You can pause this video after each slide if you need to. So textual evidence is quotes or examples directly from the text that support your ideas or conclusions that you have made about a text, and they help you explain what is happening. A lot of times I see students just summarize or paraphrase the text overall or a situation as text evidence. And that can be helpful. However, you want to use a direct quote in your writing. And that's something I notice students have not been doing. After you choose your direct quote, that is where you can go and start explaining it and putting it in a larger context if you want, where you can add those summaries and that paraphrase of maybe other information that helps. And this is important because this helps your evidence be clear and helps your claims be more clear. It backs up what you have to say and shows that you know you can not only find evidence, but you know what the evidence means. And people are more likely to believe you if you have evidence, and evidence that you can explain to them. Claims and counterclaims. Now I want you to make sure you know what I mean when I use the word claim. So a claim is the statement of your opinion on a given subject matter. So this would be your topic sentence or your thesis statement in writing. What are you trying to prove about the text or the subject that you're writing about? It's what your evidence is, what you're choosing your evidence to support. Now, a counterclaim is a statement that opposes or provides the opposite opinion to your claim. So, for example, if Joe's claim is that Notre Dame is the best college football team of all time, Steve might have the counterclaim that Purdue is the best college football team of all time. Their claims contradict each other. So one is a claim, and then the other is the counterclaim to that claim. Now, the better evidence you use to support your claim, the better you can show that the opposite point of view is wrong. So if Joe wanted to prove his claim, he would need evidence. He would need to look up evidence that Notre Dame is the best football team, college football team of all time. So he would want to look up statistics on top players, numbers of championships won, games won overall, maybe like certain records that the school has, like yards or, touchdowns, something like that. If he provided all those pieces of evidence, and then Steve just said, well, Purdue wins a lot of games every season, who has the better evidence? The first one. Joe has the best evidence because he has solid, direct information. Steve was just summarizing. And so by looking at those two examples, more people would be more likely to believe Joe than Steve. And that's why all evidence is not equal. Some evidence is better than others, and that's why you need to be getting direct quotes from the text instead of summarizing and paraphrasing. Because when you have the direct quote, it gives context and shows that you are going directly to the source. It helps your claim be proven more directly. So what you guys are going to be doing today is after you I'm going to be giving you some conclusions that I've drawn from the gift of the Magi, and also a counterclaim to that conclusion. You're going to select text evidence to back up that claim. So let's look at your assignment. What you're going to be doing is taking this document And we're going to look at the example we have here. So, for this example, I have the claim that Jim and Della are poor. And then the opposite, or the counterclaim, that Jim and Della live comfortably. Now, after reading the story, we know that statement 1 is true. But if you take some of the evidence or quotes out of context, not considering the whole story, someone might try to argue with you that no, they live comfortably. And I did find some evidence to support that. But if we look at the evidence I found 8 quotes that prove that Jim and Della are poor, and 2 quotes that prove that Jim and Della live comfortably. So, if we look at what statement has more evidence here, statement number 1, 8 pieces versus 2 pieces of evidence. Now, because not all evidence is equal, we want to look at which piece of evidence do I think is the strongest piece of evidence if I were to be writing a argumentative paragraph. So reading through these, all of these show that they're poor. However, this quote, tomorrow would be Christmas Day and she had only $1.87. She'd been saving every penny she could for months. This, you could argue, would be the strongest because it lets us infer or make an educated guess that after saving every single penny they could for months and months, they still only had $1.87. And even in 1905, that wasn't a lot of money. So this would be the strongest one. Another one that people have chosen in the past would be the last one. In the hall below was a mailbox with bills that she didn't have the heart to open. This one is pretty strong because it shows us they have a lot of bills, maybe they're in a lot of debt, and because she didn't have the heart to open them and it's filled, we can see that maybe they're behind on their bills and they don't want to open them because she doesn't have the money to pay them. So that lets us infer or make an educated guess about the state of their finances as well. So the strongest evidence is the one that you can explain, you can make inferences about, and explain those inferences to your readers. So on your assignment, you have 3 more sets of claims and counterclaims. You're going to find evidence from the story for each claim. Now, I want you to try to have 2 to 3 quotes for the statement that you think is true, and 1 to 2 quotes for the one that you think is the counterclaim or the opposite claim, the untrue statement. Try to find as much evidence as you can. You should not have just 1 for each. You need to have 2 to 3 so that one has more than the other. The counterclaim, if you can only find 1, that's okay. But you need to have at least 2 to 3 for the claim you think is true. You need to highlight or underline or circle which piece of evidence that you found is the strongest for each box. So, go through your story, find your evidence. If you need help, you can look online, and I have some suggestions of page numbers on the example in the assignment.